Yes, thank you very much. Well, so I will continue my introduction to the linguistic theory because I will again focus on the case of SL2. So yesterday's lecture, the main theme was to complete the parametrization of irreducible characters of SL2 using the L-adic cohomology of the variety here, constructed by Drinfeld. And as a result, we have obtained the parametrization of the irreducible characters, which is here. So I have given here the list of the irreducible characters and their degrees. Okay. Well, for today, we will go in two other directions. The first direction will be to understand the action of the Frobenius on this variety Y, the action not on the variety, but on the L-adic cohomology. And we will see some little consequences on the character theory side, but the main consequences will be on the modular theory side, which will be the second theme of this lecture. Well, so for computing eigenvalues of the Frobenius endomorphism on the variety, I will need only the following two tools. Just the Lefschetz trace formula that tells you that the number of rational points on the variety is given by the trace of the Frobenius on this alternating sum. I recall that this guy is the alternating sum of the cohomology groups. And I will need only that the Frobenius acts on the top cohomology by multiplication by a scalar, which is just the Q to the dimension of the variety. This will be sufficient in our purpose because we are working with a curve, which is a variety of dimension 1. These informations will be enough to do whatever we want. Well, so the first theme, as I have said, is the computation of eigenvalues of F. So let's see how F acts on the cohomology of the variety Y here. So I recall that it exchanges the theta isotypic component and the theta inverse isotypic component of H1 here. This is the decomposition of H1 into isotypic components according to the action of mu Q plus 1. It stabilizes, so because of this, it stabilizes only the one isotypic component and the theta 0 isotypic component. Theta 0 is the only linear character of order 2. And by Schur's lemma, since the action commutes with the action of SL2, and since this guy is an irreducible module, this is the Steinberg module, by Schur's lemma, there is only one eigenvalue of the Frobenius on this part. And well, but this part, the one isotypic component, this is also the same thing as the invariant under the action of mu Q plus 1. And I recall from yesterday's lecture that to compute the invariant under a finite group, we need to compute the quotient. So we take the quotient of x by mu Q plus 1. And yesterday, we proved that it is the projective line without its rational points. And, well, as I have said, the cohomology of x is just the one isotypic component of the cohomology of Y. Well, in particular, it tells you that X has no rational points because it's P1 without its rational points. So, and if we apply the Lefschetz trace formula, then we get, well, the action of the Frobenius on the second cohomology group is by multiplication by Q, and it has dimension 1, so we get a Q minus the trace of F on this cohomology group. But this cohomology group has dimension Q, and the Frobenius acts only by multiplication by rho 1. So we get immediately that rho 1 is equal to 1. So only with these little tricks, we're able to compute the eigenvalue of F on the one isotypic component. The situation is a little bit more complicated for the action on the theta 0 isotypic component because this guy is not irreducible as an SL2 of FQ module. We proved yesterday that it has two irreducible components, two irreducible characters here. But again, by Schur's lemma, it has one eigenvalue on one of the irreducible component and one other eigenvalue on the other irreducible component. Well, but since F permutes all the other isotypic components here, the contribution to the trace of F on the H1 will be concentrated only on these two parts. You see? Well, again, rho plus and rho minus have multiplicity q minus 1 over 2 because this is the dimension of these two irreducible components. And again, y has no rational point over the fq. And the reason is that if it has a rational point, then x would have a rational point, and x has no. Okay, so y has no rational point. So we get again that it is equal to q by the Lefschetz trace formula. We get again this formula, and we decompose it, as I have said, with the contribution of f on the one isotopic component, the contribution of f on the theta 0 isotopic component. But we have already computed the contribution here. We have obtained q. So we have finally that the trace on the theta 0 isotopic component is 0. And this tells you that rho plus and rho minus are opposite to each other because they have the same multiplicity. Okay? Well, but we have only one information between these two eigenvalues. We don't know exactly what they are. It will be useful for the later for proving some Morita or derived equivalences using this variety. Well, so for computing rho plus and rho minus exactly, we need to compute the eigenvalues of f square. Let's go a little bit further. For this, well, f exchanges the theta isotopic component and the theta inverse isotopic component, so f square stabilizes the theta isotopic component. So by Schur's lemma, again, the theta isotopic component is irreducible. So f square acts just by a scalar multiplication. Well, except for theta 0, okay? Well, we need an extra argument, but the extra argument has been given before. The two eigenvalues of f are opposite to each other, so the eigenvalues of f square are the same. Okay, so f square has only one eigenvalue on the theta 0 isotopic component by the previous computation. Well, so I denote this eigenvalue by lambda theta. And for computing this eigenvalue, I will need to compute fixed points under the Frobenius f square, but also only under other Frobenius, twisted Frobenius. We can twist the action of the Frobenius by the action of all the groups which are involved. G acts on the variety, mu q plus 1 acts on the variety. I will use the action of mu q plus 1. And I want to compute, well, okay, so note first lambda 1 is equal to 1. That's what we have computed before. This is the square of 1. Well, so I want to compute the fixed point under this Frobenius endomorphism. So this is f square. And then I apply the multiplication by xi. Well, so the contribution to xi f square to the h2 is just q to the square. Xi acts trivially on the one isotopic component, so I get this. And on the theta isotopic component, xi acts by multiplication by theta of xi. F square acts by the multiplication by lambda theta. And the dimension is q minus 1. So I get this equality that I can rewrite because lambda 1 is equal to 1 in this way. So you see that if we are able to compute all this cardinality by another method, then we will get all the lambda thetas because, well, this is a linear system of equation whose matrix is just the character table of a cyclic group. So this is an invertible matrix. Well, so we need to compute y to the fixed point under xi f square of y. So let's do it. That's not so difficult. Well, so we need to solve the following system of equations. xyq minus yxq is equal to 1. X is equal to xi x to the q square. Y is equal to xi y to the q square. That's the three equations. If an element xy satisfies these three equations, then here we get that this is xyq square minus yxq to the q. And if we apply the q's power to this guy, and if we replace yq square by its value here, we get easily psi inverse of yxq minus xyq. So we get minus psi minus 1. So this tells you that if psi is different from minus 1, then there is no fixed point. That's the first fact. Well, but what about the case where psi is equal to minus 1? Well, in this case, let's call this equation A, B, and C, but with psi equal minus 1. In this case, it's an easy computation to show that A and B imply C. So if I have a solution to these two equations, then it will fit all the equations. And the reason is the following. By this formula, I can express yq as 1 plus y xq over x. And if I raise this to the q's power and replace xq squared by minus x, and if I go on the computation, then I will get, so yq is this, so yq squared is this, and after some computation, I will get minus 1. So that's very easy. So if x and y satisfy the first two equations, then that's enough. So how many solutions do we have to the first two equations? Well, we have q squared solution to this equation, except that we are not allowed to take x equals 0, because if x is equal to 0, then there is no solution here. So we have q squared minus 1 solution here, and once x is fixed, this is a polynomial in y of degree q, which have no multiple roots, because the derivative of as a polynomial in y, the derivative is just minus x to the q. This disappears, so this is a constant. So there is no multiple root. So we have q squared minus 1 solution here, and for each x we have q solutions here. So we get finally that y, the number of fixed points in this case is q cubed minus q. Well, so it was easy to compute this fixed point. It's given here. So we have a system of linear equation, and we know that it has only one solution. Well, we can try to invert the matrix. I didn't do it. I have guessed what are the solutions. If you plug lambda 1 equal 1 and lambda theta equals this inside these equations, then it works. And you see that, well, if you replace lambda theta by this here, then the sum over theta of minus psi will appear. And this makes the difference between the case where, where psi is equal to minus 1 and psi is different from minus 1. So really that's a trivial computation to check that this is a family of solutions, and this is the only family of solutions. Well, okay, so we have computed the eigenvalue of f squared. So what does it tell us about the eigenvalues of f? So I recall that f acts as 1 on h1c of y on the one isotypic component, and f acts as the square root of minus theta 0 or minus 1 times q on, well, maybe plus or minus h1c of y theta 0, and I take the plus or minus isotypic component. I choose my root of unity in such a way that this works. My root of this guy in such a way that this works. Okay. Well, so that's for the action of the Frobenius on the H1, and And what happens for the others? So F acts on H1C of theta plus y theta inverse, because it permutes both. And since the square has the same eigenvalue, it's easy to see that it has Q minus, it has eigenvalues plus or minus minus theta of minus 1 Q with multiplicity Q minus 1. Okay. Well, so that's the full result we have computed using only elementary methods and but not elementary results. We have used the Lefschetz trace formula. We have computed the eigenvalues of the Frobenius on all the cohomology of the variety Y. Well, so that was, as I said, this was the first part of the lecture. If you remember yesterday, we have proved that we have proved that this guy decomposes as two irreducible components. And in fact, you see that with this method, we can achieve this decomposition by taking the eigenvalues of the Frobenius. The Frobenius helps to split some cohomology groups into irreducible components. That's also a main theme in Lustig's work to use the eigenvalues of the Frobenius. But today I will use it mainly for modular representation theory. So let me fix some notation. So, well, as usual, in modular representation theory, I will take an L-modular system. And I will take it sufficiently large to avoid problems. The size of the group G is equal to Q minus 1, Q plus 1. So if I want a prime number that divides the order of G, because I want to be in an interesting case, well, L can divide Q, but I'm not allowed. L is different from P. L can divide Q minus 1, but in this case, the modular representation theory will be mainly controlled by the induction from the Borel subgroup, so it's not the most interesting case. So I will focus on the case where L divides Q plus 1. Well, and also, if L divides Q plus 1, it can divide also Q minus 1 if it is equal to 2. And again, I want to avoid some of the problems regarding the prime 2, so I will assume that L is odd. So L is odd and divides Q plus 1. So I agree with you, it's not the hardest problem because this is a cyclic Sylow subgroup. So we can find everything by algebraic methods. What I want to do is to do the things with geometric methods. Well, so from now on, L divides Q plus 1 and L is odd. And denoted by S, the Sylow subgroup of mu Q plus 1. But I mentioned this yesterday. Mu Q plus 1 can be viewed as a subgroup of SL2. So mu Q plus 1 can be embedded in SL2 of FQ because it acts on the two-dimensional vector space and means the field with Q square element just by multiplication. And it's easy to see that the determinant is 1 because it's a Q plus 1 root of unity. So I will see mu Q plus 1 as a subgroup of SL2. So the Sylow subgroup of mu Q plus 1 will be a Sylow subgroup of SL2 of FQ. Well, and I will identify the linear character of the Sylow subgroup with the linear character of mu Q plus 1, which are of L power order. That's not a big deal. So what about the decomposition into blocks of SL2 of FQ? So we have here the list of irreducible characters. It's possible to compute the character table of SL2 of FQ with all the informations I have given, almost. Almost. And from this, you can deduce easily what is decomposition into blocks. So first of all, you see that we have characters of degree q plus 1 and q plus 1 over 2. So this guy will be of defect 0 for our L, because L divides q plus 1 and does not divide the other part of the size of G. So in this case, R alpha is a block of defect 0. R alpha 0 plus and R alpha 0 minus are blocks of defect 0. But if theta is an L regular linear character of mu q plus 1, such that theta square is different from 1, then I get a block by taking all the R prime sub theta times eta, where eta is a linear character of S. So in fact, in this case, we fix the L prime part of the character, and we consider all the R prime theta prime which have the same L prime part, for theta prime having the same L prime part. Well, but in the case where theta square is equal to 1, then I can do almost the same trick, except that in this case, R prime theta 0 splits. R prime theta splits. In one case, it splits in the identity and the Steinberg character. In the other case, it splits in the R prime theta 0 plus or minus. So this guy is a block. And this one is also a block. And it's not too hard to compute the defect of all this block. This is a Sylow subgroup of G. Well, so what do I want to do with these blocks? Well, of course, I don't want to study the trivial ones. So I want to prove that in each case, Breuil's conjecture, namely the abelian defect conjecture, is true. Well, okay, I know this is cyclic defect, but I want to do it using my variety Y. Well, Drinfels variety Y. And we will see that in the case case 1, we will get a Morita equivalence with in fact, the group algebra of S. In case 2, we'll get also a Morita equivalence. This will be a little bit more complicated. In this case, we will need the eigenvalues of Frobenius, but with a group, not with S, but with its, well, its normalizer, or well, no, it's an extended group. And in this case, we will get a derived equivalence. Well, so before going on, I want to beg forgiveness for all the stupid things I will say about derived categories, because I'm really not very good in this part. So maybe I will say really stupid things on on complexes. So please forgive me about these things. Well. So let me fix some notation. So if theta is a linear character of mu q plus 1, which is L regular, let E theta be the block idempotent of U mu q plus 1 associated to theta. Well, the block of this cyclic group are parameterized by the L regular linear characters easily. I denote by B theta the block idempotent of OG, which contains R prime theta. So that's the one which is written here. In the case where theta is theta 0 or 1, I mean that it contains the irreducible components of this guy. Okay, so that's the case 2 and 3. So that will be my notation. Well, and it's also pretty easy to compute the Brouwer correspondent of all of these blocks. So the Brouwer correspondent is given by this. Well, before computing the Brouwer correspondent, I should explain what is the normalizer of the Sylow subgroup. So what is the normalizer of S? So we have seen that μq plus 1 is embedded in SL2 of FQ. But also, because of its action on the, by multiplication on the field FQ square, but on the field FQ square, there is also another FQ linear map, namely the Frobenius. So also the Frobenius can be seen as an element of SL2 of FQ, but I denote it by sigma, which corresponds to F on FQ square. And it normalizes the action of μq plus 1, and we have that sigma composed with psi, composed with sigma inverse, it's just psi inverse. Well, so now I can describe what is a normalizer in G of the Sylow subgroup. In fact, this is the torus, μq plus 1, and the semi-direct product with sigma. There is nothing else. Okay? So this is a pretty easy exercise in SL2. So what is the Brouwer correspondent of the block B theta? Well, there are, again, some different cases. So in the case where theta square is different from 1, the Brouwer correspondent will be, well, this will be a block of the normalizer of S, but so E theta, this is a block idempotent of μq plus 1, but it's not stable under the action of sigma. So I must add the theta inverse block idempotent. For the other case, if theta square is equal to 1, the Brouwer correspondent to B theta will be just E theta, because E theta is really central in the normalizer because the sigma acts trivially on it. Okay? Well, so we have this Brouwer correspondent. Well, so what does Brouwer's conjecture predict? Well, in the case where theta square is different from 1, it predicts a derived equivalence between OG B theta and O ng of S E theta plus E theta minus 1. Okay. But in this case, by induction and restriction, this guy is Morita equivalent to OS E theta. That's a very easy exercise, just by induction and restriction. So in fact, it tells you that the derived category of this should be the same as the derived category. It's not OS, it is O μq plus 1 E theta, which is isomorphic to OS. So it tells you that we should have a derived equivalence between this and a local ring. In fact, we will see that in this derived equivalence is a Morita equivalence. In the other case, well, I don't write it. I just don't need this sum. I need only the idempotent E theta. Well, okay. So let's show this. And for this, I will need a lot of stuff about the L-adic cohomology, but not over QL, but over a ring, which is much more complicated. In this case, it's over the ring O. the ring, well, an extension of the L-adic integer, for instance. Well, an extension of the L-adic integers. Well, so what can be said about the L-adic cohomology over a ring? First of all, well, the L-adic cohomology is also the cohomology of some complex. So there is a complex which gives the cohomology over O, and I will denote it by R gamma C. So this is the right functor of the functor of global sections on Y with coefficient in O. So we have a complex which gives the cohomology with coefficient, the cohomology of Y with coefficient in O. So cohomology of Y is concentrated in degree 1 and 2, and the complex is also concentrated in degree 1 or 2, so it is quasi-isomorphic to such a complex of modules. Well, but Y is endowed with an action of G and an action of T, and it's pretty easy to see that the action of G is free, that the action of T is also free. It's not, the action of G cross T is not free. That's important. So it tells you, this implies by, well, theorem of Ricard's, Michel? Yes, by theorems of Ricard, that in fact we can, well, this complex is perfect as a left G module and is perfect as a, well, now mu k plus 1 will act on the right as a mu k plus 1 module. So this is a perfect complex. Well, this is a complex of OG O mu k plus 1 modules, which is perfect for G and for mu k plus 1, but not for the product, again, I say. Okay? Well, so that's the first thing. The second thing is that because Y is smooth, there is a general theorem that says that the cohomology is without torsion. That's very important because when going from O to the cohomology over O and the cohomology over K, then you lose the torsion. But if there is nothing to lose, that's not so bad. So since Y is smooth, H1C of Y over O, HIC of Y over O is O3. Well, another fact is that, well, in fact, I don't know if it's a consequence of this, but, well, maybe this is just the definition. In fact, the cohomology of Y with coefficient in K is just the extension of scalars of the cohomology over O. Well, okay, but we have many informations about the cohomology over K, and because of this O freeness, we will be able to get information about over O. So the first thing to do, so let me call this complex C. Well, so we want to relate the representation of G and the relation, the representation of the normalizer of the CELO subgroup. So we can, the first thing we can try to do is to cut this complex by the block idempotent E theta. E theta is a block idempotent of mu k plus 1. So we can cut this complex by this idempotent. So now mu k plus 1 acts on the right. So let's write C E theta. So this is just this stupid complex. But if theta is different from 1, not theta square, theta, if theta is different from 1, then the cohomology, because of this, and because this guy is O3, the action of the idempotent E theta on the second cohomology group is by 0. Okay, because what? Well, because this, as a module, this is just O with trivial action of G, trivial action of T. So, well, so it tells you in particular that the complex here is concentrated in 1 degree. So it is quasi-isomorphic. Just to the complex of the H1 and E theta. So concentrated, but concentrated in degree 1. Okay, this is this module. In particular, it tells you that this module here, which is here, is a projective module as a left G module and the projective module as a O mu Q plus 1 module. So this guy is projective as a G module as a mu Q plus 1 module. Well, so I have my module here, and because of the general theory, it is projective on the left and on the right. And in the case where theta square is different from 1, so let's go a little bit. Let's go a little bit further. Then what does this complex do this module do to irreducible modules over capital K. So let's extend this module over capital K. View it as a bimodule, and we take an irreducible character of linear character of mu Q plus 1 which lie in this block, and we want to see what we get on the other side. But what we get is just our R prime theta. So you see that this complex, when we extend it over capital K, then it gives a bijection between the linear characters which are in the E theta block, in the block of E theta, and the linear character which are in this block here. Okay? So we have a complex which is projective on the left, on the right, which induces a bijection at the level of characters. So it is a Morita equivalence. Between the irreducible character of this guy and the irreducible characters of this guy. So this implies that we get Morita equivalence. Well, so that's the first thing we can get pretty easily from our variety Y. Well, so but what about the case where theta is equal to theta 0? So we have still that the complex is concentrated in 1 degree. So we still have we still have our bimodule, which is projective on the left and on the right, but it does not induce a bijection between the irreducible characters of this block and the linear characters of mu k plus 1. In fact, we need some more action because, well, in the case of theta 0, we are not able to go down until the group algebra of the Sylow subgroup. We will need to go to the group algebra of the normalizer of the Sylow subgroup. But there is a problem. The normalizer of the Sylow subgroup, which has been described, this is mu k plus 1 plus an extra thing, does not act on our variety. That's really a problem. Mu k plus 1 act, but the sigma does not. Okay, that's the problem. But so how can we get an extra action? Well, I have a tool in my pocket, the Frobenius. I will use the Frobenius to get this extra action. Well, so now I'm looking at E theta 0 and B theta 0. Well, so what is the action of the Frobenius? On this guy. What is the action of the Frobenius? Well, so this splits into, over K, it splits into different pieces. Namely, this is a sum for eta in S, a linear character of S, of H1 of C of Y, capital K, theta 0 eta. The theta 0 eta isotyping component of this guy. And we have computed the eigenvalues of f square on this guy. So on this guy, f square acts by multiplication by minus theta 0 minus 1 eta of minus 1 q. That's what we have proved using at the beginning of this talk. But I recall that L is an odd prime number, so eta of minus 1, this is 1. So in fact, f square acts on this guy really as a scalar multiplication, the scalar multiplication by minus theta 0 or minus 1 times q. It is just a scalar. So and from this we get that f acts with two eigenvalues, only two, which are plus or minus the square root of this strain thing. Whatever it is. Whatever it is invertible in O. This is up to a root of unity, a power of P. So it is invertible in O. So I can define let gamma be the endomorphism of H1C of Y O, really over O, equal to what? Equal to 1 over the square root of minus theta 0 of minus 1 q times f. This is an endomorphism of order. This is an automorphism of this module, which is of order 2. Well, so we have an automorphism of order 2, we have an action of mu k plus 1. We must compare how they interact, but because the Frobenius interacts with mu k plus 1 in the good way, and we have just rescaled it, we will get also that gamma interacts with the action of mu k plus 1 in the right way. So in fact, we have obtained, using the Frobenius, a structure of module for this guy, E theta 0 here. Not only for mu k plus 1, but for the normalizer of the torus. So becomes an OG, well, in fact, only B theta 0 acts, tensor ONG of S E theta 0 module. Well, and because its restriction to mu k plus 1 is projective, it's again a complex which is projective on the left and projective on the right. And now if you compute what does this complex do to irreducible characters when you extend a scalar to k, then you get again the same argument. We get a bijection between irreducible characters on one side, it's pretty easy, and the irreducible characters on the other side. Okay. What is this bijection? In fact, in this block we have two linear characters. We have two linear characters. They will be sent both to r prime theta 0 plus or minus. Okay, the two linear characters, and the other characters of this guy are just induced module from S of the linear character theta 0 times eta, where eta is a non-trivial linear character of S. And this guy will be sent to r prime theta. Well, so that's how we get the bijection. And again, by the same argument as before, we get Morita equivalence between O G B theta 0 and O and G of S B theta 0. Okay. What about the derived equivalence? Well, it's good that I don't have so many time because there is a part which is really out of my reach, out of my understanding. This is the algebraic part, but I can explain roughly what happens on the geometrical part. Well, so now from now on, I will concentrate on the principal block and its power correspondent, which is the principal block of the normalizer of S. Well, so again, now the complex CE1, E1 is a principal block of the normalizer of S. This is again such a complex. But now, unfortunately, we have cohomology in degree 2. Unfortunately or fortunately, if you prefer, interesting problems. Well, but, and again, the same problem occurs. We have a complex of modules for G and mu k plus 1, and we want a complex for the action of the normalizer, which is a little bit bigger than mu k plus 1. So here, again, I will use the Frobenius to define an endomorphism of this complex. So now I need my notes because this is due to Raphaël Rouquier, and this is a very complicated formula. So let gamma be the endomorphism of C defined by what? Whatever the formula is, this is not very important. Stop. Well, whatever the formula is, it's not very important. What is important is the following arithmetical fact, is that L divides Q plus 1, but Q plus 1, this is 1 plus the square root of minus Q times 1 minus the square root of minus Q. These two guys are as elements of O, they are coprime because, yes, they are coprime. So it means that L divides only one of them. And I choose the square root of minus Q in such a way such that L does not divide the other, so the one which is at the denominator here. That's possible. So this tells you what? This tells you that this guy, in fact, is an endomorphism over O. It's really well defined, okay, because of this arithmetical trick. And now, if you compute the eigenvalues of gamma on all, you can compute it over K, you compute on all the isotypic components, the formula is done so that you get 1 or minus 1. So gamma is again an endomorphism, induces an automorphism of order 2 at the level of the cohomology. And this is where I don't understand the rest of the argument, that from this it's, and well, because of this nice property of bijection of characters and so on, from this you can deduce that this induce derived equivalence between the principal block of G and the principal block of the normalizer. And I must say that if you want more explanations, don't ask me, please. Okay? But I have given you the flavor of the thing. It's to obtain this extra action, you need to use the Frobenius endomorphism and informations about it. And well, after that, it's really only algebra. Yes, almost. Well, maybe you have to use at one point that this complex is not only perfect, it's also a complex of L permutation modules. Maybe I think it's crucial at one point. Well, okay. Well, so with this, so you see that with these geometric methods, we have obtained a proof of Brouwer's conjecture. Again, in the cyclic defect case, I know, but the point is that we get it using only the cohomology of the variety Y. So, as in my previous talk, I want to explain what has been illustrated by this example in SL2 about the Deligne-Lustick theory for group in general. The first thing is that for the parametrization of blocks, characters are parametrized using linear characters of tori. For parametrizing blocks, we need to use the L prime part of the linear character of tori. That was the partition into blocks that we have obtained was obtained using this. In general, for finite reductive groups in general, it's a theorem due to Brouwer and Michel that this principle still holds. We have obtained some Morita equivalence. So in the case where theta square is different from 1, this is a particular instance of what is called the Jordan decomposition. So this is the theorem of Brouwer for in the case of tori, and of Raphael and me for in the more general situation. We have obtained also Morita equivalence in another case. namely the case where theta is equal to theta 0. So here, maybe I will speak to expert. It's the Jordan decomposition, the theorem of Raphael and me, tells you that you get a Morita equivalence whenever the centralizer of some semi-simple element of the dual is contained in a Levy subgroup. In the case of theta 0 for SL2, we have extended this to the case where the connected centralizer only is contained in a Levy subgroup. In fact, in general, we don't know if it's possible to do the same trick, namely to extend the action to this little extra thing. But, well, I mean, it might be possible to do it. Well, we have obtained some derived equivalence. So in the case of the principal block, we have obtained the predicted derived equivalence. Well, again, but in fact, for general reductive groups, there is a geometric version of Breuil's conjecture that gives you a candidate for realizing this derived equivalence. This is not easy to prove that well, again, yes, it's a complex for the action of two groups, but there is the action of one group that needed to be extended to another group, as we have done here in the case of SL2. This part here is really very difficult. It involves really very difficult things about the Weil group actions and, well, the structure of the Weil group. It really plays a very important role. In the case of SL2, this was done easily because the Weil group of SL2 is a cyclic group of order 2, so that's not so difficult. And we have extended this to the case of what is called the Coxeter torus of GLN of FQ. This corresponds to the case where L divides, it corresponds to the case where the order of Q modulo L is equal to N. So that's again the cyclic defect case. But even if it's cyclic defect, we have only proved cyclic defect, I want to make some point about this geometric version of Breuil's conjecture or about this Jordan decomposition. In my mind, the spirit of Breuil's conjecture is to reduce the representation theory of a big group to the representation theory of a small group, the normalizer of the subgroup. If for proving this derived equivalence, or in some cases Morita equivalence, you need to know exactly what is the representation theory of G. In some sense, what is the point? Okay, you have two things. You compare, and you get what you want. What is interesting in this is that the derived equivalence can be formulated without knowing anything about the representation of G. The candidate is given. Okay. Well, so sometimes you need to know some things about the representation of G, but in our case, in the case of SL2, well, the Morita equivalence could have been obtained by computing the Brouwer tree. Okay, compute the Brouwer tree, you get the same. That's Morita. Okay, but here we have only used a few, well, just a few things about bijection between characters, and that's all. We didn't use this theory of Brouwer tree. We didn't use anything else. So, in some sense, I think it's very in the spirit of Michel's conjecture. Also, in the case in GLN, the case treated by Raphael and me, again, that's a cyclic defect. It could have been obtained in by another method. But again, we have used almost, well, some character theory of GLN, of course, and almost nothing. There was one thing that was used is that the induced from the derived subgroup of a maximal unipotent subgroup of the trivial character. This is a projective module for GLN. This is a progenerator. That's all what we have used. It's not such a big fact. And from this, we were able to prove, well, at least Raphael was able to prove that this is a derived equivalence. Again, I have really not understood the algebraic part in this paper. Well, okay, so that's, well, even if you prove even if you prove just the cyclic defect case, I think it's interesting to do it because of this because of this. You prove the conjecture without knowing too much about the group G. That's important. Well, we have also illustrated the role of the Frobenius endomorphism, just for extending the action through this little extra group. And we have seen also the role of the Frobenius at the level of character theory. It can be used to separate these two irreducible components, and it is really a big part of Lustig's work to understand the action of the Frobenius, even for doing just character theory. Well, what has been omitted? Well, of course, many things, but the non-abelian defect case. In fact, for SL2, there is a thesis by Bertrand Gonard who proved, I don't remember exactly the result, that proved that for L equals 2, using this variety Y, he proved that there is a derived equivalence between the principal block and I think the principal block of the normalizer of some subgroup of the Sylow subgroup, maybe the normalizer of the derived subgroup. Do you remember? No? It's not this? No? Okay, well, he proved something about the non-abelian defect, something structural, not only a bijection and with many properties. He proved something structural. It's a whole PhD thesis, only for SL2 and maybe GL2. Well, we didn't talk about decomposition matrices and Schur algebras because SL2 is too small to be interesting for illustrating all these things. Well, I think it's time to stop. Thank you.